Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okelo, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining me for an incredible session of the Daily African Proverbs. My name is Simon Javan Okelo. I am here in Seattle, Washington. The weather has been really sunny over the last few days, and today is supposed to be one of the hottest days this summer here in Seattle, Washington. Let me know where you are joining us in the comments, and also stay tuned because we have an amazing guest that is joining us today. My guest is an incredible contributor to the growth of this space. He's going to be joining us not too long from now, but it's a beautiful morning here in Seattle, and we have a proverb that is going to provide you with a lot of knowledge about African wisdom. But particularly today we are going to learn a few things about how you can stay hungry and continue accomplishing your goals in life. That's going to be the essence of our conversation today. But also we are going on a virtual journey to Mozambique. Mozambique is where we are going to be today, because our proverb for today is all the way from Mozambique, and I'm going to share it with you in just a moment. I hope you are all doing great. I am going to invite you all to join me on the stage. I see my brother Rushi, and I see Bibi is here with me on the clubhouse space. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Our proverb, is beautiful. It speaks about hunger, and it says that hunger makes the big fish come out of hiding in the great river. Hunger makes the big fish come out of hiding in the great river. This is our proverb for today, all the way from Mozambique. And, if you're ever feeling hungry and you feel famished, you feel like you need to eat something immediately. Sometimes it's not the actual hunger for food that you have, but it's probably hunger for something else, And we are going to talk a lot today about the symbolism of hunger as we know it. But before we go on, I just want to create space for you, for Rushi to say hi quickly, and Bibi. We will come back to the actual round where you are all going to share your perspectives about today's proverb. But for now, you say hi, Rushi, and then I'm going to mute you, and then Bibi say hello quickly, and then we are going to continue on with the conversation. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sam. I'm sorry. I didn't know my phone was off mute. Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, bro. You are just meant to talk and share something little at the beginning. So, yeah, this is how it is.
Idea.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Welcome. Thank you again for your continued support. Hey, Bibi, how are you doing?
Good morning, Simon. Thanks for opening the room. And I happen to be up early today, so great to be here and learn. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here as well. I see Tara and Loic and Jerica. We are going to have a guest later on today. His name is the Kikombe. He's going to join us momentarily. But again, whenever we gather here for the Daily African Proverbs, we also pick a couple of takeaways that we note down as part of our lessons, or the nuggets that we get from this particular proverb. And so every day we bring about 3 takeaway lessons for these proverbs. But before we continue, I just want to help our guest settle in into the show, and then we will continue with the conversation here. I hope you're all doing great. Just give me a moment as we bring in the Kikombe. My brother, how are you doing?
I'm okay, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. Are you still in Kenya?
No, we just arrived back in Thailand, brother.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what this sound is doing,
Okay.
but
Okay, take your time. Take your time. Yeah, and I just, I'm just excited. I thought I would be talking to you from Mombasa.
Yeah, we had to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. It's always a pleasure to steal your time, even if it's just for a few minutes. And today I have you for 1 hour, so I'm just so excited. For those who are meeting my brother the Kikombe for the first time, this is a brother that has been living and working in Thailand as an educator, photographer, voiceover artist, father, friend, and a footballer, a soccer player for over 15 years, But the other thing is that the Kikombe and I grew up in the same neighborhood in Kenya, and we never knew, we lost connection for years and years. Maybe all those 15 years you're gone. And then finally Clubhouse brought us together, Finally Clubhouse brought us together, and he was just in Kenya a couple of days ago, and he was meeting people that I know and taking selfies and sending them, and I was like, I know him too, So this is going to be a beautiful conversation, but this is how the structure of our conversation is going to look like. Number one, we are going to listen to my brother the Kikombe's interpretation of our proverb today. Number two, we are going to learn a childhood story from the Kikombe that inspires him today. What is it that keeps him grounded and motivated and driven? And then we are going to go into his biggest accomplishment as an educator and digital creator. When the Kikombe looks back all these 15 years or so, what is it that makes him smile? And then we are going to listen to you, our audience members. We are going to read your comments on YouTube. We are going to hear your voices on Clubhouse. And then the Kikombe is going to reflect on what he heard you say. So that said, I want to quickly go to the takeaways that my team and I prepared for today's episode. Again, the proverb today is from Mozambique, and it says, hunger makes the big fish come out of hiding in the great river. And the takeaways for this that you should note down in case you have to go soon. Number one, stay hungry for knowledge. Always seek knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge there on YouTube for free. A lot of knowledge is available for free. You don't have to pay to acquire some of this knowledge. And we have an educator today who is going to speak a lot more about that. Number two, stay hungry for success. If you really want something, you have to really stay focused on it. Stay hungry and keep visualizing how you want the ultimate vision of your dream to look like. For example, myself, I have been producing Madaraka Festival for the last 8 years. And it was a 1-day event, a 3-hour event, and now it's a 2-day festival at the most prime venue in Seattle, right at the waterfront in downtown Seattle, Washington, one of the most expensive cities in the world. How can a boy from the ghetto in Kisumu, Kenya be able to do that? I stayed hungry, and I knew that from the events I used to host in my mother's backyard in Manyata in Kisumu, we could grow to where we are now, and then stay hungry for life, just have a desire to stay alive, don't look for ways to get rid of yourself. Don't look for ways to, reduce the number of days you have around. Do things that lengthen your days, your mental health, and everything will just be fine. So I want to come to you, my brother, the Kikombe. But first, I want to invite our guests to share the link to this room, subscribe to the channel, and make sure we make this village fire a little warmer as we get into our conversation. The Kikombe, what is it that I did in my introduction that did not, that did not put enough Vaseline on you?
No, brother, I think you covered everything. You were right. You and I grew up in the same village, and unfortunately, I knew of you and I saw you here and there, but we never really interacted. In fact, I think I interacted with your mom before I ever interacted with you, and I think I interacted with your sisters before I ever interacted with you. Yeah. So I think you did cover most of the stuff that I believe I do.
Thank you, my brother. So we will continue building on to the conversation. I want you to share with us your own interpretation of this proverb that we have here today. Hunger makes the big fish come out of hiding in the great river. What does this mean to you when you hear this proverb? What does it mean to you? It's from Mozambique.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Hunger makes the big fish come out of hiding. I believe it's very self-explanatory, this proverb, in the sense that it is only when you really need something that you come out and give your very best. It is only when you're really thirsty for something that you come out and punch the hardest. I always have this story that I give, and it's a story that we have two fighters, and one of the fighters is determined to win this. The other fighter is very sure that he will win. One of them, the fighter who is determined to actually win, understands that he has to work extra hard because he is fighting a champion. Whereas the other fighter, who is known to be the common champion, doesn't necessarily have to work hard. Therefore, it's the hunger and thirst and the quench for that victory for the disadvantaged fighter that will make him want to punch hardest. But I have two interpretations for this proverb, brother. I do have the positive and I have the negative of the same. I don't know which one you would like me to start with.
Let's start with the positive.
Right. So the positive aspect of it is, when you really want something, when you listen to many motivational speakers, they all give us one central message. And they say that we have to be continually hungry for whether it is success, whether it is for victory, whether it is for something that we are glorifying ourselves in order to grow. Les Powers is the one who, he talks about how he wasn't even he didn't have any education, formal education per se, and he ended up being one of the powerful radio DJs ever. And he talks about how hungry he was and how constantly he went back to his manager and kept asking for this position. And finally, when the moment came, he had to grab it. And he says, I was hungry. So whenever you have that quench and that thirst to go extra hard, then you will achieve. I believe that everybody is born hungry. We are all born wanting to be better. Nobody is born. I think complacency is something that you learn as you grow up. You are taught to be complacent. But in life, you always, ever since you learn how to walk and holding your mom's hand, you constantly want to be better. You start by walking, then you start walking fast, then you hopefully will start running. So that's the quest for being hungry. You're constantly hungry. However, the idea of complacency, to me, I believe that we are born wanting it, but we are taught to be complacent. Therefore, we constantly as humans want to make ourselves better. We constantly as humans want to make our environment better. Most of the times we may not see that we are overlooking or we might be harming other people, but we constantly want to make it better. So, yes, hunger makes the big fish come out of hiding. Now, the big fish to me is not necessarily the person. To me, the big fish means the big character, the inner character of you that you have kept in there, that you probably have subjected for a while because there haven't been situations around you that have determined whether that inner character comes out. And that to me is the big fish. If you remember the story I just told you about the two fighters, the disadvantaged fighter had that big fish within him. And it's not until he realized that he really wanted and he wanted that victory that he had to punch the hardest, right? So that's the big fish that comes out of you. I think that is the positive aspect of my interpretation, brother.
I love it. I love it. Do you want to share the negative aspects too?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Right. So the negative aspect is, the way the people say that in order to go up, you have to trample on some people's heads sometimes, right? To make it up the ladder, sometimes you have to trample on people's heads. And that's the big fish in you coming out. I believe that people say that it's only when you're losing or when you're desperate, that's when your true colors come out. And a good example is, I have so many examples I could give you. I could give you one of the best examples is from good old Africa, post-colonial Africa. Post-colonial Africa is made of Africans that have learned that they have this opportunity to grow their land. And they have this opportunity to progress further and be finally Pan-Africans, right? However, the thirst for understanding that land was a big issue is what brought out the big fish in them. And therefore, if you look at Africa now, I was back home just recently in Kenya, and the idea of land is such a I have to say, disappointing aspect in the sense that land was grabbed, and people that were hungry at that time, they had that big fish and they came out of hiding and they grabbed that land. And unfortunately, the people that may have deserved that land did not end up having that. Another example is just during COVID, when the world went on to the lockdown, there were so many aspects of human imbalance that came out during that period. I think, Brother Simon, you do remember Brother Floyd, who, his death brought out a lot of, I wouldn't say sanity, but a lot of light into some of the aspects that a lot of Black people are facing out there in the world, not just in America. And it's during this period that it was very evident that there was a big rift in social dynamics and emotional well-being and mental well-being amongst the people that are wealthy and the people that are struggling to get there. So yes, the big fish also brings the negative aspects of it, and the higher you go up the ladder, sometimes you have to trample on people's heads. And that's my negative interpretation.
Yeah. And also just being okay with trampling on people's heads, is an art. You have to be willing to do it, but you have to know what you're doing so that you don't cause a genocide.
Agree.
Anyway, yeah. Our ancestors were so smart because there's a proverb that speaks to that. There's a proverb, I think we discussed it last week, that speaks to, you can't climb a tree without trampling on some leaves, and I thank you for your beautiful perspectives. I want to welcome all our wonderful guests on Clubhouse, and also our wonderful viewers and guests on YouTube. Remember to subscribe to the African Father in America YouTube channel. That's where we are live streaming right now. If you've not subscribed, I would urge you to do that. We are so close to 3,000 subscribers, actually, maybe one or two. So you could actually make the magic happen today. But my guest is really a special brother. He's an educator and a digital creator based in Thailand, but originally from Kisumu, Kenya, where I come from. And we just listened to his interpretation of today's proverb. And now we want to listen to a story from your childhood when you were around 8 to 12 years old, my brother, the Kikombe. There's a story I share with people here. And I think since you knew me from a long time ago, maybe you know it. Maybe you saw it from a distance. I used to supply milk and bread in our neighborhood. I had a bicycle, So
That's how I knew you, Black Mamba.
Yeah. So from Konambaya, sometime Konambuta, Gesoko, all those areas, I had shops that I was supplying with milk and bread, So those days shaped who I am today. The discipline of doing that, the transactions and the relationships I made with people in the course of doing that every day really shaped who I am today. And I ask this question to all my guests because I feel that between the age of 8 to 12 is when, our lives get shaped, So I wanted you to share one of your own stories of what is it that happened, what are the smells, the tastes, the sounds that were there around when this story was happening that continue inspiring who you are today, my brother.
Yeah, brother, I have to say, first of all, I think in Manyata, in Kisumu Manyata, in the slums, you were in CJ, right? CJ, right where the matatus would turn.
That's right.
And you were in Konambaya. Konambaya basically translates to the dangerous corner. And that's where I lived. But brother, I have to I have to let you know that I was a late bloomer in a sense that, between the age of 8 and 12, as you mentioned, where you actually realize, oh goodness, this is happening in my life, and you become aware of what is actually going on in your life. Mine happened when I was 13, between 13 and 14.
Hold on for a second. There was a shop that was owned by a Kikuyu family in Konambaya. I can't remember their names, but that was my customer,
Yes, Babanjeri.
Babanjeri was my one of my biggest loyal customers.
So, I do have stories of that, I do have stories. That's how part of my hunger came. Brother, I'm not sure if you remember the shop near CJ that was called Octagon.
I do. Very well. Yeah.
Now, one of my first visits to, not my first, but one of my first realization that I was actually poor was one of my few visits to Octagon shop. There was a lady at Octagon shop. I do forget her name and I apologize, but she did pass on several years ago. We used to go to Octagon shop to borrow things on credit because we couldn't afford it in our home. But I'll get to that, and I'll let you know that before then, I never realized that I was poor. Everything was always there, Yeah, I didn't realize that people paid their bills. I didn't realize that water was paid. I thought that everything was there for free. But this is because I grew up in a university in Nairobi. And as an employee of the university, my father and my mother, they had every facility catered for them. We had a swimming pool, and I learned how to swim before I was 9. And then for somewhat reason, my father decided that he wanted to go and live in Kisumu, which was closer to home, which is Yala. And so he got a transfer and went to Maseno University. And it's only after this happened, when he moved out of campus, and because he sort of wanted to get a sort of an allowance or something, that we realized, oh goodness me, bills are paid. And so at one point I was 13 years old, electricity got cut. And I had no idea what was going on. Everyone around us had electricity. We actually went without electricity for almost 2 years. Kenya Power sometimes brings you a bill that you don't understand, and it was almost 8 to 10,000 shillings. Back then, that was almost half my father's salary.
And
So there's
then
no way.
and then also corruption. Sometimes there's someone at Kenya Power who just has a problem with you, and they don't just come and take out the cutout, from the meter box. They go to the pole, they
Exactly. And so in these 2 years in darkness, that's when I realized, goodness me, we are poor and I have to get out of this. I used to think that I was just an average student. No, I ended up being a smart student because it's in this darkness. I used to go to school and get to school because our school is the only place that had electricity. So I would get to school at 6 a.m. We used to fight over the 6 a.m. Seat with my friend Pasaka Peter and another one called Jeff Dabunde. We would fight over that because that was the only way I could read and do my homework in electricity. But if I had to do it at home, I had to use Nyangile. Nyangile is a lantern, Koroboy lamp that I would use, but that wasn't allowed in our landlord because we had a ceiling made of white kind of material that the landlord didn't want the soot going up and spoiling. So it's during these periods that you're poor. At the end of the month, father has something that he can get. Mom has something that she can get in Nairobi. But we had to go and borrow things from Babanjeri. Sometimes we had to go borrow maybe Sukuma Wiki from Mama Maxwell there at Konambaya. I don't know if you remember the Okwiri Onganga family that we also had to be really close to.
Yeah,
And we had
because
to,
of the pig butchery or what? Because the Okwiris had a pig butchery, right?
they had a lot of cattle there.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
brother, that kind of poverty is what made me think I need to work hard. I need to study hard. There was a time that we had to go buy sugar by the spoonfuls. People are buying them using what is it called, quarter or an eighth, but you're going there asking for spoonfuls of sugar. You're going there to ask for like a spoonful of cooking oil or something like that, and you're borrowing that. And I realized, you know what, I need to get out of this. But some weird thing happened, and the more successful you get as a young kid, the more the financial obligations happen. So you get into high school and you're making it to a great high school, and then you realize, goodness me, how am I going to pay for it? What was the point of working this hard? But for some reason, I think my father put his head down. My mom put her head down before she passed on when I was 15 years old, and I had at least good school fees to pass me on, to push me for a good 2 years. So the rest of the few years was my father and bursary and all that. But I could tell you from then onwards, it's always been, I'm working hard, I'm putting my head down, I'm getting out of this. And that's been the hunger that's gone there. The hunger and the hunger and the big fish inside me that realized, you know what, you are not born privileged, and you have to work hard to get what you want so that you can sit at the table with those people that were born privileged.
Man, yeah, you have to pull yourself up. Nobody is going to do it for you. Nobody is going to you're not going to pick $1 million on the street as you walk, There's no shortcut,
Brother Simon, I tried. Those Coca-Cola competitions that happened.
Right,
When the bottle cap, I actually have a few of them here, where you have to take this bottle cap thing, and then you have like, what did you call it? Pele.
Well, it was called peke. The bottle top, the bottle top was called peke, but the inside was called, I can't remember what the inside was called.
Pele or something.
So
we used to take these,
yeah,
and they had competitions where whatever you get in there, you would send it to Coca-Cola, and people would win cars, and people
I remember
would win
that, yeah.
I won a hat.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Maybe sometime you'd win a soda,
Yeah.
I remember.
It's not going to get you out of poverty when you have bills to pay, So, that was a realization that I cannot gamble with life. I have to work hard. I have to get an education. And to me, education is not just to work hard in school, is to work hard with the people around me, to socialize enough so that the people around me see me as somebody instrumental that they can rely on. And that is growth for me. And that has been, I have to say, that has been my luckiest growth as far as I know.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I just smile when I hear you tell these stories because, now we can look back at it and realize how far we've come, and also realize how far we can actually go, how far we can actually go. And really, the theme for today's topic is really in alignment with the stories you're sharing. And I hope that if you are just joining us now, or whether you're listening or watching, we're having an incredible conversation here with my brother, Deki Kombe, who is an educator and a digital creator, and is currently in Thailand, originally from Kisumu, Kenya, where I also come from. So we are sharing some really, really intimate stories about our upbringing, and this is really the only way I feel like I have explored and reflected on my upbringing in a really genuine way. I feel that every time I connect with you and have sufficient time, the Kikombe, we always go back this down memory lane. But I want you to also share with us, some of the work that make you most proud currently, because from all these struggles, you are able to travel the world, establish yourself as a professional soccer player, an educator, a digital creator, and someone who just transforms conversations. Whenever I share space with you, everybody is always excited to hear what you have to say. So share with us, some of your biggest accomplishments as an educator and also as a digital creator. But if you want, as a father too, because this is the African Father in America podcast, and I really center this podcast on African fatherhood and Black fatherhood, and to inspire other young fathers like us to be better and do better.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I agree with you. It always brings me some warm memories, not only when you speak on the phone, but even when we speak on here and on this platform about our childhood and all those exciting moments that we had. But first, I'd like to correct you. I'm not necessarily a professional football player, soccer player, but I can play soccer.
So in your neighborhood on Konambaya there, the Ukwiris were soccer players, and then if you go back behind the Ukwiris, we had that home where Adamu.
Yeah, Adamu, I know Adamu.
Yeah, so Adamu's Kevin.
Yes.
Kevin played professional. Okwiri played professional. So
Yeah.
I assume that you are one of the professionals there, because that corner was full of professional soccer players. But now I understand. Now I understand.
Yes, brother. So I think I would like to start with my biggest achievement as a father. I believe that I'm raising my children to understand that they need to be of service to the people around them. And that is not easy because, one, you're raising children who are children of color. And two, you're raising children in a very different environment. You're raising children in Asia, and I work at a fairly privileged environment. My children don't see as much disadvantage, if I have to mention that. And to teach them that they have to be of service to other people and they have to think about ways to establish a sustainable peace, to me, I think it's already a growth towards achievement. Second, just being a father itself and being there for your children, I think is a privilege, not necessarily achievement. As an educator, I think I have learned that education is not just academics. And I say this to my students, I say this to people around me, I did say this to my late father before he passed. And so he understands that, those scores that you get do not determine how successful you will be in life. Life, maybe the society might dictate that, but success to me is how you interact with people and how you foster growth amongst many people. There are people out there who aren't as academically successful, but they're street smart. Simon, I always tell you the story about this young boy that we grew up with, and this was in Nairobi, and his name was Wahome, and he made the best cars ever, wire cars. He made the best wire cars ever, and he would put people inside. He would meticulously create them nicely. Unfortunately, he couldn't speak English, and unfortunately, he couldn't read and write really well, like we were fairly privileged to be. And he wasn't seen as successful. There's a kid called Patrick. I went to school with Patrick in Kosawa Primary in Kisumu. Patrick was, now that I think about it, I think he was on the spectrum. But this boy was a thespian in the sense that all these films by Rambo, Bruce Lee, Amitabh Bachchan, Dharmendra, Vijay Dev, all those films, he remembered and he could relay you the film graphic by graphic, everything. And so I have to say my biggest achievement as an educator is realizing that those people and those kids and everybody out there is of talent, and we have to find that talent to grow it. Yeah.
I agree. That this is also my passion. This is why, I helped establish One Vibe Africa. You recently visited some of the work that we do in Kenya. What did you think?
I was absolutely blown away. I spoke with Steve. Steve is the gentleman that runs it, or who manages it at the moment. And he took me through a journey of how far it's come and all the projects that you have in waiting, all the projects that you have carried out, the people in the community that you have supported, the people in the outside community that One Vibe Africa has supported, and I was absolutely blown away. The authorities are aware. I'm aware that One Vibe Africa is a license to hold national exams for creatives out there in Kenya, and not just in Kenya. I understand it's East Africa. Is that right, Simon?
Yeah. We even work very closely with National Industrial Authority. They don't have all the equipment that they need for their program, so they send us all the youths that need photography, videography, and we still have a lot of improvements and a lot of work to do. But I'm very, very privileged to have people like Steve on our team, and we have a few team members listening to this conversation too. So I hope they're proud of hearing this.
Yes, and I think One Vibe Africa is a great example of how hunger brings out the big fish out of hiding. If you think about it, Simon, you and I, when we were growing up, we never had establishment like One Vibe Africa. We didn't have those that helped people. We had Care International that helped, I don't know who, and we had the chief, the chief in Kosawa Hall who helped, I don't know who. So that was not very accessible. But what you have created with One Vibe Africa, you have brought those talents, not those talents, but those seeds to the community so that people can tap into their hunger and go and grow. And I heard of all the people that you have assisted and all the people that you and One Vibe Africa and Steve's team have assisted. And I'm very impressed, man. I'm absolutely blown away.
Man, it's been a privilege. We've had a really good team. a lot of our team members were beneficiaries. They were the youths that first benefited from the work that we were doing. A lot of them also actually started with my mother's orphanage. So some of the kids that grew up in that environment didn't have jobs. They didn't have, the next step. And so One Vibe became that next step. And it's true, we never had, and even now there are still very few spaces and resources like what One Vibe is providing in Kenya. What's interesting is that such spaces even lack here in Seattle, where I am. And many people who are from Seattle who have been to Kenya and spent time at One Vibe are now pushing for us to start something like that here in Seattle. So, I really thank you, my brother. Let's listen to our friends who are on stage with us for a few minutes, take some notes, and at the end, I'm going to ask you to reflect on some of the comments you're going to hear. But also, at the end, I'm going to ask you to share with us how we can support you. What website can we go to support your work, or how can we stay connected with you? So grab a notepad and a pen as I bring our brother. You're ready. But listen, you got paid to play soccer recently. That counts as professional.
Yeah.
It counts, even if it's little, right? You don't have to play for Manchester to say that, Yeah. So let's elevate that one a little. But Rushi, my brother Rushi, what did you hear that inspired you from this conversation, and what is your interpretation of today's proverb? And also, where are you joining us from today? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. The whole conversation was extremely inspirational. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing the stories about growing up. Because yeah, I mean, you've spoken so much about growing up in Manyata and delivering the bread. So it's great to hear someone verify that information. And so that was very, very, very insightful. I appreciate the stories. I really do. This proverb today, I'm calling from Charleston, South Carolina. This proverb today, it really took me back. At first, I really didn't know what to make of this proverb. I feel like these proverbs are getting more and more complex as the as time progresses throughout this year. But I started to think about this proverb, and then it really struck to me what it meant to me. And for me to bring it to context, what this proverb means to me, I have to tell two small stories really quickly. Um, I spent a lot of my summertime at my grandmother's house. Right behind my grandmother's house, there's a creek that comes off one of the main rivers in Charleston. And this creek is where we got all our fish from that we ate. My uncle, which is my grandmother's son, he was the person who was the big fisherman in our family. So I remember he would leave in the morning time. He would take his 1.5 rolling paper and his marijuana. He would go out fishing. He would always come back with a whole bunch of spot-tail bass for us to eat. And as a kid, I was the worst fisherman. I have never ever caught a fish uh, in my life that way. I used to go fishing, and what I would do is I would throw my line into the water, and I would pull it back really fast, thinking I had a fish, because I always wanted to. That's how people see on TV. They will pull it back, and you see that you reel in, you would have a fish. I would never ever catch a fish. No one, people used to hate going fishing with me because I would always do that. I would wait about 1 minute, and then I would pull my reel back in. And I was the person who would always get their line caught with someone else's line. And people hated going fishing with me. So I think about that a lot when I think of this proverb. And also, I never really caught a fish until later on in life when I went deep sea fishing for the first time. And if you've ever been deep sea fishing, what happens is you go in the boat and you drive out for about 3 hours, and then the boat stops, and all you have to do is drop your line into the water. You wait a minute, you pull it back up, and there's a whole bunch of fish on the line because they're just sitting in the water waiting right there. That was the first time I ever caught a fish in my life. And what that taught me was what it means to be patient and what it means to persevere. Patience and perseverance are two key factors when it comes to fishing. Also, as a kid, what we used to do a lot as a kid, we used to go crabbing. And the way we used to go crabbing was you would take a string and you would take an old piece of meat, you would tie the string to the meat, and you would throw it in the water. And once you had enough the right amount of tension on the line, you can feel when the crab is clawing at the meat. So what you had to do was you had to slowly pull the line in, slowly pull it in, little by little, not scare the crab off. And then once the crab gets right to the surface, you had to be very patient and very diligent and very quiet and take your net and scoop the crab out before he runs away back into the water. And I think about those two stories when I think of this proverb because I think when I think of the word patience, patience doesn't really mean that you're just waiting for something to happen. Patience is about having a plan and being patient and persevering through your plan and wherever that is, wherever this is a business deal or whatever you're going through, you have to be patient and you have to not quit and not give up when adversity strikes you. So that's what I think of when I think of this proverb. I think about practicing patience. I think about having perseverance. When things get difficult, what do you do? Do you give up or do you keep going? Do you stick to your action, your plan of action, and be patient and see things through? So that's what I think of when I think of this proverb, and it's definitely a great proverb to talk about today. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, my brother Rushi. I loved your interpretations, and I see Freddy is with us also on YouTube, sharing his comments there and saying, "When you arise, this is the win. The hunger is looking to wake up every day. The sun and the stars applaud when you arise." I love that. Now, Bibi, how are you doing? Where are you joining us from? And what is your own perspective on this proverb? Thank you so much for being here. Share with us where you're joining us from as well, and also any comments to my special guest today.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Simon, again. Oh my gosh, how are you, Kikombe? I am so glad to hear your voice. It's been a minute since you've been here, so great to hear your voice. And totally, I love hearing the background, like the background of how we all come about, or how you guys have reunited. And I think I mentioned it in the past. We have this proverb that says, um, "Mountains don't meet, but people do." So it's like you never know who you leave behind, but eventually one day we will someday meet somewhere, and that's exactly what happened. You guys were right there breathing the same air, but you guys never got a chance to meet, and finally one day you guys finally did, and that's just amazing to say how much these ancestors knew exactly what they were writing for us or passing down whenever they have proverbs going on in our cultures and all languages and however it's written. And as far as the proverb goes, the first thing that came to my mind is whenever we're going grocery shopping, we make sure not to go hungry. We always try to eat something at least and have something in our stomach, relax before we go grocery shopping. That way we don't buy off our list. And even if we go off our list, it won't be to certain extreme. That's my one intake on that proverb. And the second one is hunger is actually good for you. And sometimes it's okay to be hungry and not react right there and then. Because when you chill off your hunger and your reaction, you may actually pass all the rush hour stuff, and sometimes the best things are left to be for the later guests. So just when you calm down, take a step back and then get back to what you were planning on doing. You may end up getting something much bigger than the first rush. So that's my take. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, Baby. I appreciate you being here with us today. Lavender, how are you and where are you joining us from? What is your interpretation and comment in regards to the conversation with the Kikombe?
Hi, Simon. Hi, everybody. This is Lavender from Kenya. I'm speaking from Seattle, Washington. Simon, if you'll allow me, I'll just listen in today. My voice is, I'm not feeling well, so I'll be just listening. But the Kikombe, you're loved and appreciated in this platform and room. And thank you for all the love and support you've been giving us so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lavender. I hope you feel better soon. Hey, Debbie, how are you doing? What are your perspectives on today's conversation?
Greetings, I'm well. This is Debbie Berlin, Game Dev Debbie, joining from Maryland near Washington, D.C. I really appreciate the guest and his ability to set such a scene as he tells stories of Kenya. I felt like I was right there on the bus, sitting next to his childhood friend. Wow, what a beautiful storytelling. Regarding the proverb, I agree that our hunger drives our passion. And I'm going to give another twist on it, but I also wanted to commend the speaker on the story of the person building the carts and how he said we have to inspire children's natural gifts so they can be successful in a way that's meaningful to them. Because, yes, children come with their own intrinsic natural gifts, talents, and abilities, and it's helping them to discover and uplift that. So I thought that was beautiful. And I love what was said earlier by another guest saying that sometimes being hungry can be good. And I think about the big fish. I think about sometimes during fasting periods when you go beyond the need of needing to feed your face and then you start to feed your soul, right? That bigger fish, the bigger person that's not ruled by primal needs and just needing to satisfy that part of our nature is able to kind of ascend and rise above. And so I see that as well, that bigger fish, that bigger soul within us coming up. So I so much appreciate today. Thank you so much for allowing me to share.
You're most welcome, Debbie. Brother, let's hear from you. How are you doing? Where are you joining us from? And what are your perspectives on today's conversation?
Peace and love, family. This is Brother Herb. I'm coming out of the North Carolina territory. And again, always honors to you and the family with sharing all the wisdom. And the conversation, it's a perfect example of, they say it's a small world. How, you could be right next to somebody and not meet them till you across the world, or it's just so funny how your paths actually cross, or how close vicinity y'all were. But anyway, and what I would say to the proverb is, or when I think about the proverb, um, in order for a fish to grow big, right, it has to be a very cunning fish, smart fish, because a lot of them little small fish get ate up, fished out, and all these things. So, in order, when the big fish gets hungry, uh, it has to make itself vulnerable to a degree. Or what I say is, uh, hunger, like Debbie said, is the passion, but the passion will cause you to step outside of your comfort zone and be open to opportunities, or good or bad, or just everything that the great river holds, or this thing we call life. And this story also makes me think of, I had a cousin, and he had bought him a truck, and he started making him a little bit of money, and he thought he was the big fish. Anyway, uh, he, he got so he started working, started working 5 days a week, like 5 and 6 days a week, like he was when he first started. He just started working 2 and 3 days, and laying up under, laying around doing too much of nothing. Anyway, he ended up losing his truck and all that because after his plate got full, you know what I mean? Opposed to keep stocking up the refrigerator and keep going like he was, he got lazy. He got complacent, so to speak, or he just hung around his comfort zone, and it allowed him to fall off, but he ended up coming back. But that was a lesson well learned that you had to keep that passion going. You got to keep that drive going, even though sometimes when you feel like you at a place where you can kick your feet up, you still got to push forward. So with that, I'm gonna park my plane right there. Peace and love, family.
Peace and love to you, Brother Earth. Stella, how are you? And where are you joining us from? What are your perspectives on the proverb today?
I'm fine, Simon. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Today's proverb is really wise, and I have three stories that I can relate to it. One is a Kenyan story that happened sometime in 2020. I think around the time that COVID was just hitting hard, and there was this woman who was in all the news headlines of how she had cooked stones for her 8 children who are hungry so that they could know that their mother was preparing something for them. But in real sense, she didn't have anything. And she didn't know that she could be making headlines very soon when she was doing this. And soon Kenyans came in and started helping her, and she got something to feed her children. Secondly, it reminds me of a story in the Bible about this widow who went to Prophet Elisha, and it's in Second Kings 4, and she was telling the prophet how her husband had died, and their master was taking her 2 sons because her husband didn't quite agree with the master. So she cried to Elijah, and Elisha was asking her what she had, and she was like, I don't have anything except for a little oil. And how that oil was turned into too much oil that filled so many jars. And Elisha told her to sell it, clear her debt, and feed from what was left. And again, she didn't know that crying out to Elijah would bring her hope, and that's where her help could come from. Then the third one is a podcast that I recently bumped into. It's called Joko Podcast. I found it on YouTube, and it was talking about good. In the podcast, there's someone who tells him that every time I tell you something bad, you tell me good. And he was saying that yes, good is what you say when things are bad, because there's some good that will actually come from the bad things. Because when bad things happen to you, it's not the time to bury your head and start worrying and start cursing and all that negative stuff. It's the time to re-strategize and find yourself, listen to yourself deeply, and come up with solutions. So this proverb is really wise and it's really deep. And again, if I look at the story the Kikombe has shared with us, it just aligns with the proverb so well, and I really appreciate that we came across it and we got to talk about it today, because it's a really encouraging one. Otherwise, thank you, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Stella. Let's hear from Jay. How are you, Jay? Where are you joining us from? And what are your perspectives on today's proverb?
Thank you, Brother Simon, and greetings to everyone in the room. Very quickly, I'm coming from Seattle, and very, very quickly, I'd like to say I saw this proverb from two different perspectives. And one is a perspective of greed, that you really do have everything that you need. You don't need anything else. You don't want for anything. But that hunger for more, millionaire, billionaire, the hunger for more will cause you to leave, to go after what someone else has that might be little, but you still want theirs as well. And the other thing has to do with people who are already extremely established, doing extremely well, and they're willing to give of themselves, and they're willing to do it freely. They're willing to come out. There's a hunger in you to give back, to support, to encourage, to uplift, to help someone else. And I think about that in two very, very quick situations that has happened here. One, Simon is a person who does that, who really wants to see other people win as he grows and as he becomes more established. Uh, and then secondly is COVID. People were hungry to still perform, and they were willing to step out of their comfort zone in order to have an opportunity to continue to perform, do what they love, do what they enjoy, do what they were meant to do. And because of that, there were two huge individuals that I found on Clubhouse that were willing to perform for little of nothing simply because they wanted an audience. And I was so grateful and so appreciative. Thank you so much, Simon, always for this club, for this room, and for the wisdom it truly does bring for those that are seeking. If you're seeking, you will find. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Now we are Omise, our last contributor today, before we come back to you, Brother Kikombe, so that you can share your reflections and help us wrap up our time together today. Omise, the floor is yours.
I got Benny alive here to you, Simon, alive here to everybody in the room. Peace, peace, peace. So I have two takes on this, right? This first concept of destiny is something, spoken on highly by the Yoruba people in the Ifa cosmology. We talk a lot about, destiny. And all people have a destiny and a purpose. And when they find what their purpose is, they walk in their purpose on the path of their destiny, right? So in terms of the fish, what drives the big fish is its will, its soul, right? And we know that the soul is another name for the sun. And the sun being a star, it burns very intensely and it shines very brightly. So if you have a goal, if you have a goal to achieve, if you have something that you're trying to hunt down and your fire burns brightly, you will most definitely get to where it is you're going. As Jay said, everything that you need, you already have within you. It's just a matter of tapping in, and that's what makes you shine. That's what makes the big fish successful. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Omise, and also thank you to our contributors and our audience members who have just been listening throughout the conversation today. We've had a really great time. My special guest today is my brother, the Kikombe, and this is a brother that has been living and working in Thailand as an educator, photographer, voiceover artist, father, friend, and footballer. And also he's been doing this for over 15 years, and he's a humble brother who does not accept a lot of compliments. But now I want you to just share your reflections, brother. Tell us, what did you hear that inspired you? And also, in closing, how can we support the amazing work that you do? Thank you so much for making the time.
Brother Simon, thank you once again. I think my biggest takeaway is how amazing it is that, several years back, hundreds of years, maybe 50, I don't know, 200, the ancestors brandished such intense wisdom to pass down through generations, wisdom that will never expire. You know, listening to everybody who's spoken here, everybody had, if not the same, but similar interpretation of such wisdom that our ancestors brandished or our ancestors laid down to us. I like the story that, was it Roshi, the
Rushi,
first
yeah,
gentleman
Rushi.
who spoke about the 3 hours that he had to wait in order to go deep sea fishing, and he talked about patience and perseverance. And then Babe, Babe talked about how hunger is actually good for you. Babe, thank you so much, and I appreciate you. Thank you to know, and I love that you're still around. Lavender, I love you too. Thank you so much. Debbie talked about how hunger drives our passion and how we should always nurture those natural gifts that people have, not just students, but everybody around us has, because that's what makes humans hungry to grow and make humanity better. I love what Brother Earth said about how you can be right next to somebody, but you never really meet them until you're across the world. Thank you. And he says, in order to fish, or you gotta be, in order to fish, sorry, he talked about how big fish did what, how big fish get hungry and it has to make itself vulnerable to a certain degree in order to achieve something. Stella spoke about how that story of the woman from Kenya who cooked stones for their young children, that is a powerful story of how hungry are you? How hungry are you to achieve what you want for the people around you? And I like the story about the podcast that she talked about how if somebody gives you something negative, you talk about good. You respond by the word good. It reminds me of something powerful I learned not so long ago about, instead of using the word but, B-U-T, use the word and, in the sense that if somebody tells you something, instead of responding with but, you just add and, so that you're echoing what they say, but you're also adding on to what they wanted to ask. J.E., good to see that you're around. I appreciate what you mentioned about greed and how hunger for more can drive those people that are well established, and how COVID brought out the hunger to perform on people on Clubhouse and so on. Thank you so much for sharing. Brother, is it Benny?
It's
So
Omise.
he talked about destiny and now the sun. If the sun is rising, if the sun is shining intensely, and you've got that goal that you've got to hunt down, then you're going to achieve what you're going to say. Overall, I'd say, Brother Simon, we're all born hungry. We're all born wanting to be better, and we're all born wanting to grow. Nobody is born wanting to just be as short. I might be vertically challenged, but there's that goal in me that wants me to grow taller, not just in physical appearance, but in appearance in my brain, in what I mention, in what I talk about, and how I interact with people. So hunger, or the thirst, the will to want that good or bad thing around you, is what brings out your true characters within you out in this world.
Thank you, my brother. I'm just so grateful. We face the same challenge of being short people. Anyway, so it's true to supplement what you don't have with other things that you have. And I feel that the example that you gave of of that, what's the name of your friend in Nairobi who made really great toys?
One thing. Yeah.
Kwame?
Wahome.
Wahome.
Yeah,
You
there
know,
were a few, but Wahome is the one I remember vividly.
yeah, you know, we had that kind of talent in Kisumu too, you know, where somebody would take a milk, used milk packet and turn it into a beautiful toy, you know, and it would last for months actually, you know. But here we recycle everything even before using it, you know, and you know, I feel that our toy industry could still do really well if we invested in these kinds of creative minds, you know. And I feel that even me myself, you know, now that I'm thinking even more about me distributing milk and bread, I feel that if I had traveled and got the exposure that I have now, I would be owning the biggest bakery in Kisumu right now, you know.
I
But
actually agree.
you know, but I didn't know that there was possibilities beyond just supplying the milk and bread and going to get it from the bakery. What I'm realizing now is that the people who owned the bakery and the milk factory are just humans, you know. But at that time, because of how desperate we were for the goods to supply and for our commission, and also to have access to these things, you know, when you are distributing milk and bread, you are definitely you definitely have some bread and some milk to use for your own household, you know. And so, you know, because I was too hungry physically, I didn't think about the like the whole world that existed around this industry that I was in. So today's conversation has really been eye-opening for me, and it's going to allow me to really think about where I am today and where I want to go. You know, how hungry should I be with you know, the things that I have ahead of me in the immediate future. So my brother the Kikombe, I would love to have you back again in the coming months. I just thank you, especially because you just arrived from a long journey and you made the time and you look strong. It's like, you know, you didn't even travel, you know. So thank you, you know.
Have tea and me. Chai, we lures anything. We Kenyans actually. Tea will wake you up.
That's true. That's true. Well, that marks the end of our time together today. Please give my love to the family. You know, take good care of yourself, my brother, and to all our audience members. You are deeply appreciated for taking the time to join me today for the Daily African Proverbs. This session is being recorded for the African Father in America podcast, available across all podcasting platforms. We've reached over 100,000 downloads. You know, we just hit that goal last week, and I really appreciate you all for, you know, listening and subscribing to the podcast, and also subscribing to the YouTube channel. It really means a lot. If you're in Seattle, or if you're in the US and you can make it to Seattle for Madaraka Festival, it's August 13th and 14th. Dibanj, who is a legendary African musician, is headlining it. Emmanuel Jal, a former child soldier from South Sudan, is performing, and many talented artists. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. The Kikombe, what are you about to say?
Whoa! How did you pull off the bunch and Emmanuel Jal?
That's
Oh,
another
silly.
episode. Yeah, that's another episode. But maybe just quickly, connections, relationships. Just like you're saying, you know, relationships. Yeah, relationships. It's through someone I actually met on Clubhouse that we became. He was a speaker at Africa Day last year, you know, and so we became good friends. And he knows all these people because he's a producer and a DJ, and he's actually being managed by Michael Jackson's family, you know. So everybody wants to produce their records with him, you know. He's also the global board chair for the Grammy Academy. So everybody wants to associate with him. So then I tell him all my problems, and then he finds solutions.
Well,
Anyway, yeah.
and you brought out the big fish in you, and it's come out of hiding, and here comes the bunch, and here comes Emmanuel Jal.
Yeah, man. We will stream it so you can catch it in Thailand too. You know, we'll stream it on One Vibe TV on YouTube. for everyone who can't make it to join us as well. But a lot of information is on madarakafestival.com, so check it out. We are still looking for sponsors, volunteers, partners. So connect with Lavenda, who is in the audience. She's the co-producer of Madaraka Festival. And with that, my brother, thank you again. I know I took a little extra of your time. Peace and love.
Appreciate it.
Father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okelo, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.